Judy's not. My name's Mark Toland, I'm the Police Borough Commander, and I'm going to explain what that is in a moment. Eric, thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to come here. Eric said people will start to drift in, so if people start to come down, I'll just continue. I will start because you're all on time, and I like to start things on time. To my right is Katie Ruff. Katie's my staff officer. She looks after me. I thought I was in charge of the borough, but I'm clearly not. Katie is. So if you need to know any difficult questions, then I'll hand you over. I was asked to come here, and I was asked for a theme. So I thought I would take you through one day in the life of a borough commander. And I'm going to take you back to a date in June next year. So what's Brent all about? I actually think Brent is the finest place I've ever worked. I've got 30 years police service. It's the most challenging. It's lively. It's an exciting place to work, and I hope that I can take you through a day and show you some of the challenges that we face. When I first came to Brent, which was 4 years ago, Judy remember me well, I had jet black hair, and now look at me. Look what you've done to me. You've worn me out. My priorities. So what are my priorities? The most important thing that I can do is to try and stop a crime taking place, and that's really important to us. Secondly, if a crime takes place, it's really important that we treat victims and witnesses really well, because we want them to help us. Because the next thing we want to do is try and catch the people who commit those crimes. And it's really important to me that we bring people to justice. So if someone dares to commit a crime in Brent, I want my staff to do everything they can to try and catch them. And whilst we're doing that, to give you the best possible service. So a lot of the work we've done in Brent is about how my staff react to you, how quickly we respond to your calls, and we've tried to make sure that we give you the best service possible. To keep your concentration, I'm going to have to bribe you, okay? I'm going to ask a very difficult question at the end of my presentation, and for those of you who drink, there is a bottle of wine for the winner, okay? So you've got to stay awake. I apologise if you don't drink, but I'm sure you can donate it to a raffle. I also have a prize for all of you. It's a very small prize, but a very important one, and it will change your life forever, okay? So is that fair enough? Are you with me? Yeah. Okay. Right, can we just go to the next slide, Katie? This is me. I'm a Cricklewood boy, made good, I'd like to think. I was born in Paddington. I won't tell you how long ago, but it was quite a few years ago. I'm the son of Irish immigrants. They came to London in the 1950s. My mum and dad met in the Galtymore nightclub in Cricklewood, which sadly has been razed to the ground. Many a good marriage was born out of the Galtymore nightclub. I met my wife in the Galtymore nightclub. Okay, so there's a theme coming out here. I went to school in Finchley, but I lived in Cricklewood until I got married. When I first got married, I moved to Kingsbury, which is also part of Brent. I got married in Kilburn, in Quecks Road Church in Kilburn. My in-laws live in Neasden, my mother-in-law and father-in-law. And if I get things wrong, good evening, how are you? If I get things wrong, I'm in terrible trouble with my in-laws. And every time I make a decision at work, I think of them, because I actually think if it makes their life better, then actually it's the right thing to do. My sister-in-law lives in Dunhill, and boy, does she give me a hard time. She rings me all the time. Okay, about myself. I've got 3 children. I've got a boy who's 15. I've got twin girls, which is a worry for me. They're 13. And I'm learning to ride a horse at a very late age in life, and it's much more painful and takes me much longer to recover. I was a borough commander first in Hillingdon in 2003, and then I had the privilege of coming to Brent in 2006. In August this year, I'll have 30 years police service, which is the time we call it a day and I retire, and I'm very privileged to finish up in Brent. Okay, that's a bit about me. Okay, on with the show. Katie, the next one, please. Okay, some pictures are going to come up here. What's Brent all about, and what's a borough commander? A borough commander, effectively, you are the chief of police. You are the senior police officer in Brent. Brent covers a wide area, and I hope most of you know that. We go effectively from Kilburn in the south all the way up towards Northwick Park in the north, and we cover from the Edgware Road on the eastern side to the A40 on the western side, and we have everything in between, lots of different landmarks. There's going to be no prizes for this question, but these are 2 of my police stations. That's Kilburn. That is late at night. They should be out on patrol. And this is Wembley. How many staff have I got? This is not going to win you a bottle of wine, I promise you. But how many staff? You probably know the answer, so go on then, far away.
Approximately 550.
550. How many else? Anybody else? Judy, you should know the answer to this. How many people work in the police in Brent?
That's a different question.
800. Okay, it's 1,000. I have just over 700 cops, police officers. I have police community support officers, and you would have seen a couple outside before you came in. I've got about 120 support staff who answer the phones, contact witnesses. I've got 70 non-uniformed volunteers. Have I got any volunteers in the audience? I might have by the end of tonight. We've got a lot of members of the public who come in and help us. I've got about 50 special constables. Now I can look at some of you. I've got my tape measure tonight, so I'll measure you up for your uniforms. And we've got volunteer cadets. We've got about 40 cadets, which are young people. I'm very proud of them. I've got Dick Jackson, your safer neighbourhood sergeant, hiding there in the middle of the audience. And I'll introduce him later. But it's a lot of people that I have responsibility for. And the reason I say that is because it's a big team, and that team has lots and lots of different things to do. Katie, the next one, please. Front counter's really important because this is one way that you can access our services. Katie, the next one. You're going to see some of them now. One of them's really messy, which is we've got front counters at 4 of our police stations, primarily at Kilburn and at Wembley. We have 24-hour facilities 7 days a week. And at Willesden and Harlesden, we open 7 days a week, but we don't keep it open all night because we don't get lots of visitors at night to those police stations. And I'd rather have those police officers out and about. Large numbers of people come in here, and it can range from someone coming in to report a lost child to reporting a crime. And I remember as a youngster, someone came in and handed themselves in for murder at the front counter to me. That was a shock as a young police officer. Sometimes we get big queues at the police stations, and what we've tried to do is to put more, these are station reception officers, that's actually a police officer, but we use a lot more police community support officers now so that we can release our police officers out on patrol. We've got volunteers, and again, if you want to volunteer, why don't you come in and work in one of my front counters? So we've got volunteers helping us, and what they do is like a triage system. They go out and find out if it's a quick inquiry or if it's something that's going to take a little bit longer. But effectively, that's a really important place for us because people need to know how they can access our services. Okay, 29th of June 2009. Who remembers that day? It was a warm, sunny day, not too dissimilar to this. It was the only day that was sunny last summer, so you should remember it well. I'm going to take you through my day on that day and talk you through the sort of variety of stuff that I did on that day and what I do on most days. I start early. I'll try and get in before Katie. I'll do my best to get in before Katie. I get in about 6 o'clock in the morning. Our night duty are just going home and our early turn officers are coming in at that time of the morning. I speak to the night duty and find out what have they dealt with. Well, the summer weather means lots of people are out drinking, so there was quite a bit of drunkenness. We'd had lots of calls to noise by local people. We'd had a few burglaries overnight. People leave their windows open late at night when the weather's nice, and some people see that as an opportunity. We arrested a burglar, which was really good news, and I like seeing people arrested for burglaries because I hate people that break into homes. We have a 15-year-old girl that's missing. She hasn't been seen for about 12 hours. She hasn't gone missing before, and it's a bit of a worry for us, and we've done lots of work to try and find her. Katie, can I have the next picture? Okay, so first thing we do in the morning is we brief our officers. What a fine bunch of officers, aren't they? Can't you see them? They're all bright awake. They haven't had a cup of tea yet. But actually, you'll see they're looking at a big screen there. I hope you can't see that because that's personal information. But they're being briefed about the suspect who's involved in crime. These are some of my officers. These are actually at Kilburn Police Station. We have more than that number parading at Wembley at the same time. These are the officers who respond to emergency calls. That's primarily their role. I like to pop in every so often to keep them on their toes and make sure that they know that we're still about. But they're being told about what they're going to do in the next 8 hours or 9 hours, depending on their shift. And they will respond to your 999 calls. Let me ask you another question. How many calls do we receive a year at Brent Police? Any idea? Telephone calls from the public? Some of it's emergency, some of it's non-emergency. It's not a prize again, I know, but come on. How many?
20,000.
20,000 over a year? 20,000? Do I hear any higher?
150,000.
150, you're very close. Katie, can I just have the next one, please? Here's one of them in action, driving a car, that's really good. They deal with about 400 calls a day, which is significant. Not the best piece of driving, that's not how you should park your car upside down. We deal with 126,000 calls It's a significant number of calls. Of that, about 21,000, just over 21,000 are emergency calls to accidents, to people who need our help. And that's where you see the officers with their blue lights are making lots of noise. We deal with about 14,000 calls where people need us to come, but not straight away, which we call a soon as call. It means if our officers should get there within about an hour. We are really good at achieving those targets now. We're hitting the best targets ever for getting there in emergency and getting there within an hour. We have a schedule appointments car now. If you ring British Gas and say you'd like them to come round, what do they tell you? Morning or afternoon, if you're lucky. We will actually give you a time that suits you. So if it's a crime and you want us to report it, if you tell us, we will send an officer to your home, to your place of work, and we will come at the time that we say we will come. And it has been a really good thing that we've done, a much better service. We do receive some bizarre calls. I can remember once a woman rang to say that her fridge was very noisy and could we send a police officer. Some people are very lonely in the middle of the night and they ring us at 2 and 3 in the morning. Quite sad cases often, and they ring because they know we are a 24/7 emergency. But it's really important, and I'll stress that a bit later. If you need us, dial 999. Never worry about should I call, should I not call. Ring us, and I'm going to show you why a little bit later. 999. I will also give you a non-emergency number later. And those phones now go through to Hendon. We've got a massive call centre, and they pick up the phones within about 10 seconds. So gone are the days where you were trying to phone Willesden Police Station and no one answered. You must ring 999 or the non-emergency number. Yes, sir.
Can I just ask, the 999 calls, they come through to you, they don't go to some central place?
They do. They go Hendon Training School. We've got a big call centre there, and your 999 call will go to that centre, and they send it straight out to your local officers. Non-emergency call goes through to the same centre. If in doubt, dial 999, and they'll route you through to the right one. But they've got staff there now that pick up the phone really quickly. We won't always send an officer really quickly. We have to assess it and make sure that we appropriately respond. If it's an emergency, we'll get there as quickly as possible. Okay, Katie. Senior managers, I'm not on my own. I've got 1,000 staff. Katie, can I just have the next one, please? Okay. This is a picture in June last year. I meet with my senior managers at 10 o'clock every morning. I've got a mixture of some police officers, and they're a mixture of superintendents and chief inspectors. That's me, the Borough Commander, looking very happy. This is not a young senior manager, that's actually my son. Because on this day, it was one of those days where you can bring your child to work and he wanted to come and see what policing was all about. And what we do is we discuss every crime that's happened in the last 24 hours, because I want to know what we're doing about it. We're discussing now that 15-year-old missing girl and how we're going to find her and how can we find her quickly. We discuss robberies, burglaries, domestic violence calls, accidents. We want to make sure that we've dealt with calls properly. We also had a PCSO who fell off his bicycle on that day. He wasn't drunk, can I just reassure you? But we actually have responsibility for those 1,000 people, and it's really important that we make sure that we get a grip of things and make sure that we deal with everything properly. Okay, Katie, next. Arresting people. I mentioned earlier about it's really important that we stop a crime from taking place, but if a crime does take place, then we must arrest those people and bring them to justice. Okay, another question. How many people did your officers arrest last year? Oh, you're very slow, I need to wake you up.
About 10,000.
10,000. You're very close. Katie, can I have the next one? We have 2 custody suites. This is at Kilburn Police Station, where we can house about 18 people, and this is Wembley, which will come back in a minute, and we've got capacity for 25 cells. 12,781 people were arrested in Brent last year. It's a significant number of people. What does that equate to? 250 a week, 35 a day. We are a very busy place. We also have Wembley Stadium, and sometimes if we get some naughty teams at Wembley Stadium, we arrest a few people. But Brent is a very busy place, and we do arrest lots of people. Katie, can I just have the next one, please? Okay, who are these people? Come on, anybody know? Who's a safer neighbourhood officer? There's a clue. There's one there.
Yes.
Who's never heard of a safer neighbourhood team? Please be honest with me. Right, one person. So the rest of you have. Now, if I'm going to test you, if you've all got a piece of paper, you need to write down the names of all your safer neighbourhood officers. Do you know them?
Jackson.
Yeah.
Richard Jackson is our sergeant.
Oh, Judy's cheating now because she knows all the names. Okay, Katie, can I have the next slide, please? These are really important to you. We have 21 wards in Brent, and we have 21 separate teams. They will have a minimum of a sergeant leading those teams. They will have 2 constables, and they will have 3 police community support officers. As a minimum, the busier wards have some additional people, and they will have 3, 4, some of them have 6 and 7 more police community support officers. They are your teams. They are not mine. I try very hard to tell them what I'd like them to do, but that is not their role. They are there to respond to your emergencies, to deal with your local antisocial behaviour, local problems. They are full-time in your ward. I can't take them away to Police Wembley Stadium or to send them to a football match. They stay on your ward areas. They are only a small team, but they have another 1,000 people behind them, so it's really important. You should see them walking your streets. Katie and I found loads tonight. I was really reassured. Most of them were patrolling on their own because that's what I've asked them to do. But as we drove through Brent tonight, I've come through about 5 or 6 wards, and every ward, starting from Wembley Central, I've seen them out on patrol, and that's what we're asking them to do, to be visible, to talk to you. Sometimes you'll see them wearing lycra and riding their bicycles. Dick, have you got your lycra on? No? I tried that at my last borough, yellow lycra, and what did people do? They just laughed at me, so I've refused to wear it since. Katie, can I just have the next slide, please? Okay, more PCSOs, more community officers, and you'll see one of my favourite, not that one, that's PCSO Steve that goes into schools. Richard Perrott, it's only because it's a nice photograph. I don't like them drinking tea, but I'll let Richard. Richard works in Harlesden. He's a fantastic PCSO working in one of our more challenging ward areas. And Richard will walk around at 1 o'clock in the morning on his own. He feels very confident to do that. At the moment, I've asked the Safe and Neighbourhood teams to visit every single address in Brent, to knock on every single door, to let you know who they are, to reintroduce themselves. Some of you might have got the life-changing gift that I'm going to give you tonight, but what they should give you is their mobile phone number, so you can call them direct. And if it is a local problem, something that's been happening for ages, ring them. They'll come round to see you, they'll speak to you over the phone. If it's an emergency, dial 999, because that team will not be on 24/7. So please, if it's an emergency, dial 999. Has anyone had a visit yet? I'm going to embarrass. We've had a visit. Fantastic. That's really good. God, he's so relieved now. Look at that. I didn't do that on purpose. It's really important that they do that because they need to let you know who they are, how you contact them, and the fact they're there for you. And I've asked them to visit every single address. Okay, Katie. 29th of June, that's Summer's Day. Every so often in Brent, we get something that we call a critical incident. That's when something really serious happens. And it has huge ramifications for us because quite often it gets lots of publicity, high impact crimes. And I'm going to take you over to Harlesden. There was an 80-year-old female called Anne Driscoll, and Anne was shopping in Tesco's. And it was about 3 o'clock, and Anne left Tesco's. She walked back the normal route home, and Anne was attacked not far from where she lives in Harlesden, and she was stabbed several times. She was stabbed in the neck. I think it was about 6 stab wounds in the end. A completely unprovoked attack. The male didn't steal anything. It clearly wasn't a robbery. And some of my officers turned up and found her, gave her first aid and called an ambulance. A really serious crime. The good news is that Anne would make a full recovery. But that sparked off a tremendous amount of activity for me. One, it's terrible to hear that anyone's been attacked. Seems to make it 10 times worse when it's either a youngster or someone who's more elderly and vulnerable, and a very unprovoked attack. Because it's not a murder, your officers at Brent, we deal with those sort of crimes. If it's a murder, then we have homicide teams that come in and they will actually investigate it, but we actually pick that up. We very quickly have to cordon off the scene, and sometimes you'll see lots of rope, tape where we're taping off an area, you'll see lots of activity. We need to try and keep that sterile. Sometimes you can't always get home, and we have to, hopefully my officers should explain to you why we're doing that. We couldn't find the knife, so we were missing the knife. The suspect was gone. There were no real witnesses to what happened to Anne. It was completely unprovoked. There was no motive. It was motiveless. There was no robbery. My officers, some of them went to hospital with Anne trying to get as much information, and we got a very partial description. CCTV is very important to us, and we tracked Anne back to look to see whether the suspect had followed her off from Tesco's, whether they followed her down the high street. And it's really important, if you've got a private scheme but it looks out into the road, that you must tell the police. We need the shops to tell us, because that's the first place we go to see if we can find out what's happened. And we tracked her back. Eventually, we found a photograph of a person who just didn't look right. It was a warm day. They had a very long overcoat. And if you look at the photographs, one arm was rigid. We knew the person had a long kitchen knife. We didn't know who that person was. We brought in the murder squads for some advice to help us. And then we went to the safer neighbourhood teams. We went to the sergeant and the officers in Harlesden, and we showed them the photographs, and they recognised that individual as being a local person, and they recognised them pretty quickly. We searched and tried to find an address, and one of the safer neighbourhood team officers remembered that they lived somewhere not far from where Anne was attacked. And we went round, we arrested the individual, and we had the right person. And it is a success story, but it's not as much as we had someone seriously injured. The good things that have come out of that, we arrested and charged someone. They were not well. There was no reason for the attack on Anne. Anne I spoke to, my detective was in hospital with her. I asked her how she was, and she said, "I'm very well, and could you come and see me?" So I went in to see her, and she was lovely. Those safer neighbourhood team officers still visit her today, because they care about the people of the police. A very high profile event, and one that obviously gets in the newspapers, a very serious incident, and thankfully we don't get too many of those in Brent, certainly not people in unprovoked attacks. Katie, you can imagine that took up quite a lot of my time that day. These are some of my detectives, terrible shirt and a tie to match, but actually a lot of my staff you won't see. So I know a lot of people say, you've got so many police officers, where are they all? Well, once those officers that I showed you earlier have reported a crime, these officers investigate it. They'll investigate things from minor assaults, harassment, criminal damage, damage to cars, to burglaries, to robberies, to more serious things. They love to catch people, and they love to solve crimes. Some of them are really good at it. Mark Toland, he's really good. He worked in the community safety unit at Kilburn. And we've got some really passionate people. Domestic violence is a really big issue for this borough, and I hate it because I actually think that's the place where you should feel safest, is in your home address, and often we have people who live in fear. And these officers are very good with dealing with victims and victims of crime. Katie. On that same day, I'd promised to go and visit my victim and witness care unit. We have staff that once we've arrested someone, once we've got witnesses that come forward, we need to make sure that we get a conviction of court, a successful outcome. And we have a unit that pick up the victims and witnesses, because we need to look after them. Has anyone been a victim or a witness here? I'm not going to ask you about your experience. What about a witness? Anyone been a witness?
A witness.
Okay, did you have a good experience or a bad experience?
I won't go into the details. It was a good experience, except for one particular thing where it went wrong.
Okay, that's a really good point. We know that. Sometimes we arrest people really quickly and then we forget to tell witnesses what we've done. Sometimes we get people convicted at court and we don't always go back and tell the person what the outcome was, but we are getting much better at that. I have a group of people, I'm going to show you a picture of them fairly soon because they are very passionate. Let's have a look at them. This is our criminal justice unit. To get cases to trial, some of these people are responsible for 17 cases, and each caseworker has about 15 to 20 people. Some of the calls, they might only make 20 calls in a day. Some of them last an hour or 2 hours. People need to talk, they need to support. We need to reassure people. See what a happy bunch they are when you ring them. They're sitting on each other's laps, they're really happy. Any idea how many contacts they had with victims and witnesses last year? If you add up all those telephone calls, all the letters, any idea? 100,000 letters, telephone calls, contacts. And there are more people than that. It's not just those few people, but it is a really important thing because we need people to help us. To get a prosecution, we need people to come forward and help us. Katie, next. Okay, this is a bane of my life. Property. Do you know how many items of property are sitting in my police station? 25,000 items. Some of it's stolen property that we've recovered. Some of it is property that we know belongs to some of you and the people here, and we can't find the people to give it back. Some of it is stuff that we've taken from criminals because we're really good at seizing their assets. If we arrest someone now and we find they're in possession, is it £500 or a £1,000 threshold? 500? If we have someone who's got £500 or £1,000 or above, then we are now asking them to account and to prove to us that that's not the proceeds of crime, and we want to take assets away. Can I have the next? I'm going to show you a few items now, the sort of property we get. This is my little part of my property store. There's not 25,000 items in there, don't worry. This is some of the stuff, the serious end. We've recovered lots of firearms. That's a big bag of drugs that we've seized, and you can see the cupboards there are full of stuff. I'm going to talk you through an operation in a minute, very briefly. And I got called one night, about 9 o'clock at night, to say, could I come and put some money in our safe? I've got a safe in the police station. And they brought in a bag of money, and it was rolled up £50 notes, and they were rolled so tightly I couldn't pick up the bag. There was £200,000 we recovered, and we've kept that money. We give it to the government. I don't personally keep it, and I made sure I put it all in my safe. But we are recovering lots and lots of stuff. We did an event about a month ago at Brent Town Hall. We called it Aladdin's Cave event, and we produced loads of property that we've recovered, and we can't find losers. I have television screens that big still in the plastic, and I can't find anyone. Brand new.
That might be mine, I think.
It's yours. I knew it was yours. We can't find the losers. We had 11 iPhones. They were yours as well. We had still in the packets. But the most disturbing thing is we have jewellery. And fortunately, we had at least 7 people who came back that day who think they found items of property. I want to give it back, particularly jewellery, things that have an emotional impact on someone. We wanted to give it back. And it was a really good day. I got to meet loads of people. We had over 350 people came to view our property. And some kids got their PlayStations back. I don't think Mum was overly pleased because I think she was quite pleased they weren't playing with it. But we were able to give people their property back. So it's really important if you lost something or had something stolen, tell us. If you've got something which is really of sentimental value, take a photograph of it and keep it somewhere safe. So if ever you lose it, you might lose it in the street. Really important to help us, because if we've got a photograph, we might be able to give it back to you. Katie. Forensics. Anne, who was stabbed, that is really important. We have to get... Do you all watch CSI? Yeah, it's really exciting. I don't think... Hey, I've got a hand up at the back. I don't think we're as exciting as CSI, but I have forensic experts. And with Anne, who was stabbed, it was really important that we look to see if we could get fibres off Anne's clothing where the suspect may have come into contact with her. We're clearly looking to see, sometimes if you rub together with a suspect, then we might be able to get something of clothing. You would be amazed where we can get fingerprints and DNA from. And if we can just move on, I'll show you some of my top staff sitting in their office. Put the strangest request they had last year from one of my cops. How do you package a 3-foot by 5-foot wall? One of my officers, I don't know if they thought we were going to bring that into the police station, but the forensics is really important for us. So if you've been burgled, then please bear with us. We'll get an expert there to you. We'll try and get them there within an hour as best as we can. And we will try and look for things that someone might have touched. So please, if you've got shiny surfaces or something that you think someone might have touched, our experts can get hold of that. On a daily basis, we get back DNA, particularly fingerprints, we look for shoe prints, and we can actually search on everybody that comes into a police station now, and I'm not going to ask you if you've been arrested. We have a machine now that literally we take live fingerprints, so we will know pretty quickly who you are. Gone are the days where we have to take fingerprints and send them to Scotland Yard. We now have some handheld devices which we can take out as well, which is really important. But this is a major part of tackling crime. Some people become more forensically aware after they've been arrested, so they'll have made a mistake and they might be more careful the next time, but this is a very good weapon for us. Have you heard of Smart Water? If ever you get offered a Smart Water kit, take it. It is identical, it is specific to your address. Mark your property with it, and we have the equipment now to check people when they're arrested to see if they've got smart water on them, and then we can trace it back to wherever that property came from. More importantly, if you have that television in that plastic, if there was smart water on it, we could have given it back. So if you had smart water, I'd be giving you your telly back tonight. Katie, next. Okay. Right through from April, for about 3 months, we did an undercover operation in Stonebridge. We had been called by the Housing Association, and they told us about people who were dealing in drugs. We had members of the public who kept a log of people who were calling at addresses. Far better than half my staff. It was fantastic. Times, dates, registration numbers. We took it off them. I have cops that work. Where's it disappeared? Ah, right, thank you very much. I have a lot of police officers that you can't see. If you see them, they're failing miserably. I've got 40 police officers that primarily go around here in cars which aren't marked police cars, looking to catch robbers and burglars. I have people that specialise in tackling organised crime. This is the Stonebridge estate, one of the tower blocks. I'm not sure if it's pulled down yet, but they will come down, and I can't wait for the day that happens. We had those complaints. I gave it to my undercover cops to go and look at, and they did a 3-month operation. On the 29th of June, I was going back to a meeting in Stonebridge to talk them through what we'd done. So what are the results did we get? We had 23 arrests. We recovered 2 firearms. We recovered 56 bullets. We recovered that bag of money. Do you remember the bag of money that I would later put in the safe? I did put it in the safe, I promise you. We recovered a huge amount of drugs. Those 23 people were all charged. We already had the evidence. We were ready to go, and they've all been. They weren't convicted because they all pleaded guilty. Such was the weight of evidence. That has made a dramatic impact on that area. It came down to one family that organised it all, and that family controlled that area. And since we've removed them, what a difference that made. And what a nice public meeting. They were as nice an audience as you are tonight. You know, it was really positive, and we now can work better with the people who live there because we've taken out the people who controlled it. So we can do really good stuff. You might live next door to someone who you think is acting suspiciously. Who have you told? Tell us. I don't care how you tell me. Your Safer Neighbourhood team, and I'm going to give you some numbers later. Ring them. Tell them. Email us. Ring the police. Ring the non-emergency number. If you're afraid, because some people are afraid, give it to us anonymously. We've got a Crime Stoppers number I'm going to give you later. It's completely independent from the police. You can retain your anonymity. You can tell a counsellor. I haven't got any counsellors here tonight. Budding counsellors. Have I got any budding counsellors? You can tell your local MP. They can make a complaint on your behalf. So if you've suffered from antisocial behaviour or something, they can make that complaint to us. And this is what we can do. We can do operations of this scale. We did another one later on the end of last year in Harleston in Church Road, where we arrested 35 people, and they're all still in custody. We can do this. We can do small stuff as well. If you are suspicious, who's nosy? Julie, I'm looking at you, but who's nosy? Who watches what's going on in their community? Who's seen someone walking up and down their street recently and you felt uncomfortable? Anyone? You thought, why? Did you dial 999? The challenge for me is dial 999. Do you remember those 40 officers driving around in cars? They want to catch burglars before they do a burglary. They want to catch them. We need you to ring us. You will never get told off by me for ringing us in good faith. As long as you don't ring me about your fridge, I'm okay. You ring me about someone walking up and down your road and you feel uncomfortable, you think they're up to no good, we'll come down, we'll send someone down. My staff love that. Their favourite arrest is a burglar. And if we can stop someone burgling the premises before they've done it, that's much better. Don't ever think I should have called. You must call, yes sir.
Sorry, it's me again. It goes back to my question about the call centre. I thought now we were all being discouraged to use 999, and I do know the operators actually do pick this up if they think it wasn't an emergency.
No, only if you're ringing about something which is ridiculous, then they might say to you, you shouldn't be ringing the police. If you ring up to say, I think there is someone in my street and I feel really uncomfortable, I think they're up to no good, They will send someone, and it's 999. They will make the assessment. They'll ask you questions, and they'll say to you, what are they doing? And they will make an assessment, but they will never ever tell you off for ringing for something like this. If it's a non-emergency thing, you say for neighbourhood team. That's what they're there for. If you've got an address and you think there's something odd, tell your safer neighbourhood team. They can go and do all the intelligence checks, and they can come back and reassure you. Clearly, if we're going to do a big operation, we just need to be careful about what we tell you. But what we should do is come back and tell you once it's done. Okay, so as if I haven't got enough on my plate, what else is going on in Brent? What other building have I got in Brent? Katie, yeah. Next one, please. We also police Wembley Stadium events. This is people coming out at night time from a concert. Trying to get 90,000 people into Wembley Stadium safely and out of Wembley Stadium is our primary role. Katie, in her previous role, had responsibility for liaison with Wembley Stadium and particularly the arena, because don't forget that sits next door. And it's almost 365 days a year. It's not quite, it's about 200 and something events. But a significant number of people travelling through our borough, and our responsibility is to get them home. We had problems last year, well we had problems with Madonna one year where Madonna wanted to do an encore, and then by the time everyone had came out, all the trains were gone. And we had thousands of stranded people all around Wembley Stadium. But this is really important to us because it's the home of English football, clearly. Lots of high profile events and lots of different events. Okay, Katie. Night duty, what's the best placed venue? Anyone know? Do you recognise that premises? They think, that's one of my police officers, they think I don't know where they go to get their food on night duty. But I know. Actually, I don't mind them doing that. I don't mind my officers, and they're entitled to a refreshment break, sitting down and have a cup of coffee in the community and chatting to people. They're not, they're probably getting a takeaway. And that's only there for a joke. Right, Katie, the next one, please. I'm nearly done, and it's nearly time for bed. You can imagine I've had a bit of a day. If I take you back to the 29th of June. That is an unusual day because of Anne Driscoll, the lady who was attacked. But everything else is not unusual for police in Brent. It started off as a routine day. We found the missing 15-year-old. She'd gone with friends. She'd had an argument with mum. I was afraid to go home, and she was safe and well, which is good news. We'd arrested the person who attacked Anne, which is always good news. And I knew that Anne was going to be okay, which helps me sleep at night. Policing never stops. Brent is 24/7. You know, I go to bed at night and I've got people that I know will look after Brent for me. Sometimes I get called in the middle of the night, which is the right thing to do. But you have lots and lots of passionate people trying to make Brent safer. I want to cut crime and continue to cut crime. That's my number one thing. And I want, if I can stop one person from becoming a victim, that's the right thing to do. And I promise you that if someone commits a crime, I'll do everything I can within my power to make sure that we bring them to justice, which is really important. I am a local boy, and I started off telling you about Cricklewood, and you probably wonder what's he going all about. This area means something to me. It's about my friends, my family, the places I grew up. I care about Brent. I care about the people of Brent, and I've obviously got family, and Judy as well, because Judy, when I first arrived, Judy said, what did you say to me, Judy? Something like, you've got a hard act to follow. I was so frightened when I met her. She frightened me when I first met her, but she's really cuddly. Okay. I'm going to give you a prize in a minute, all of you, and I'm going to ask one of you, or I'll hopefully give you one of you a present for a really difficult question. Can I just have the next slide? No, it's coming. Nighttime comes, we go all the way around again. Most of these places are closed. Brent is reasonably quiet at night in terms of licensing. We don't have too many premises that cause us too many difficulties at night duty. The Kilburn High Road is probably our main place with sort of pubs and things. We haven't got lots of clubs. But 6 o'clock the following morning they start all over again. And those officers are there to support you and to help you. Okay, Katie, the last slide. Okay, I'm going to finish fairly shortly, and I'm going to take some questions if people would like to ask questions. It's prize time. Now look at you all sit up. You're all excited, aren't you? Okay. There can only be one winner of this exclusive bottle of wine. So what question am I going to ask? How many prisoners did we arrest last year? Put your hand up if you know the answer.
12,700.
Hang on.
25,000.
No. I've got a hand at the back, but I think you work here. What was
I
12?
said 12,747, but I can't remember.
12,747. What do we reckon?
741.
I'm going to give you this bottle of wine because you are very close. It was 12,781. Thank you for paying attention. And you didn't take any notes. Okay. Right, I promised you all a life-changing present. Katie, would you help me give some of these? Right. I know it's a bit late in the year, but this is a calendar. Some of you will have seen it. Unfortunately, there are no pin-ups. I tried to persuade Katie and Richard to take part in this, but they wouldn't do that. But when you open the first page, this is really important. Keep this. Useful phone numbers. Non-emergency number, emergency number, your safer neighbourhood teams, all of them, whichever team you belong to. If you're not sure, please see us. And there's other useful phone numbers. I don't care what you do with the rest of the calendar. Please keep that somewhere close, and if ever you need us, then the numbers are in here. How many do we need along there? You can leave checks for these afterwards.
I've already got this at home, so I'll take one away anyway.
Has everyone got a life-changing present? Okay, so you're all reading it now. I'm very impressed. If you want more, please let us know. We are, hopefully, when police officers are coming around, we're giving out things like this. But the phone numbers is really useful. And I thank you for your time. Now you know why I've gone grey, but I love where I work, and I think you should love where you live, because actually Brent is a safe place. We do have incidents every so often which get in the headlines, and it appears to be very negative, but actually it's a good place to live. We don't often get vulnerable people injured like Anne was, but I just wanted to explain to you that actually that's kind of a serious thing that I deal with. Thank you very much. Any questions? Oh my God, right, I'll start with the lady there, put her hand up first.
I have two.
Yes, go on then.
First one is, how is your police work different because of the number of immigrants who live in Brent? What special provision?
Brent is the most diverse borough in Europe. We used to say the UK, but actually I think it's Europe. So it's a borough of different cultures. We do have people who come to this country who get involved in criminality. Some of those are people who are illegally in the country. We try and target people who shouldn't be here, who are engaged in crime. It's difficult because if I get someone that comes from Eastern Europe or another part of the world who's not known to us, we don't know who they are, we don't know a lot about them, so we're trying to do more work with other police agencies across Europe particularly to find out more about people who are coming in, because sometimes we get crime starting to happen and we don't know who they are, and sometimes they are people who are particularly illegally in this country. But we do lots of work to try and do that, and we try and target those who shouldn't be here and those who are committing crime. But it is difficult when some of these people are not known to our police agencies. Sometimes we get a crime and someone will give us a description, and my staff can work out who that is. They, some of them have, grown up as children, now adults committing crime, and my staff know who they are. When we get strangers coming in, it makes it really difficult for us to police that.
Are you given budget for that?
No, we're given an overall budget to police Brent. We work very closely with the border agency, and we do lots of initiatives with them where they come with us if we're going to somewhere where we think that people shouldn't be in the country. We arrest people if we think they're in breach of landing conditions or illegally in this country. Some of them are sent home. Some come from countries where they're in civil warfare, and sometimes it's not always safe to send people back from their country of origin. But we're very robust around the way we deal with people. We will arrest if we think someone is in breach of their landing conditions or shouldn't be in this country and they're an illegal immigrant. But my activities focused on those that come to commit crime. My parents were immigrants, and they came here in the 1950s, and they came to work. Certainly the people who came from the West Indies and Ireland and Poland in those days came to work, and I don't think any of us mind if people come here to give something back to the community. People who come here to commit crime, the only thing for us is to arrest them. And where possible, we either send them to prison if it's a serious offence, or we send them home, and we have sent people home who are criminals that we don't want to. And the second question, and then I'll move on.
The second question is that you hear a lot that while the police are doing their work, the justice system is allowing criminals to go free. Is that something that...
It's difficult because part of that justice system are juries. So you have members of the public making decisions in criminal trials that go to Crown Court. I work very closely with our criminal justice partners. I chair a group where we have magistrates, the Crown Prosecution Service, who are the people who make decisions about what to charge with, the Victim Support Service, and we work really closely together. And we're really good partners. The police, we need to get our act together and make sure we give the best evidence possible to a court. And sometimes we make mistakes. But we've got a fantastic relationship with Brent Magistrates Court. Sometimes people use the law to the finest extreme and they get off. We can't do a lot about that. Sometimes witnesses won't come forward. Domestic violence is a really good example where my officers will go, if they think a crime has taken place, they arrest, and then the victim changes their mind at a later stage, and then quite often the court case can't go ahead. So it's really important that we get victims and witnesses to come with us to help us. What we try and do is give the best evidence. That operation I showed you in Stonebridge, we had such good quality evidence that they all went to court and went, I did it. Every single one of them pleaded guilty to it. So we need to gather the best evidence to make sure that the criminal has only one thing to do, which is to admit the offence. Yes, sir, and I'll come back to you.
Three very quick points.
Yeah.
So I'm a diabetic, and sometimes I travel around Britain to visit and to see it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I was thinking, if I'm a diabetic and I'm stopped for some reason by the police,
Yeah.
how can I prove to them that the tablets that I need to take every day are not a bunch of drugs, but are for my own personal
Yeah.
use?
Do you carry the prescription? Do you carry any identification? Because you have to be
Keep them
really.
in the box.
Sometimes you can come across someone who has not had sugar and collapses, and for us, we need to know when we're dealing with someone. People wear bracelets and all sorts of things. So, I think if you carry the prescription, we're sensible. A lot of the drugs have got things written on them, so we can then check quite quickly now. With the internet, we can probably check as quick as anything. Most of the illegal drugs, we kind of know what they are. It's only tablets, a bit more difficult. But I'm more pragmatic with tablets. But if you've got powder and stuff like that, or cannabis, it's fairly easy to work out what's illegal and what's not. And if it's tablets, then hopefully there's something on the tablet which we can check reasonably.
Thank you. The other point is you've got a cycle patrol. They worked in the Cricklewood area and they were absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So all praise, thank you.
You've been
All
assaulted.
praise, yes, all praise
Yeah.
to them. The other thing is, in Germany they have a bicycle patrol. If anyone goes across red lights
Yeah.
in German cities,
Yeah.
the police are on bicycles, and if anyone goes through a red light, the police are after them to arrest them for breaking the law. Here, they cycle on the pavements, they go through red lights. The law does not...
I've told Richard not to do that. I appreciate it. I passed one of my police community support officers on Monday who was stopping someone, telling them to get off the bicycle, not to cycle. We can report people for it. It is difficult. Mobile phones are my pet hate. When I see people driving, they're on a mobile phone. But if we were stopping people every day, my officers would do nothing else apart from a mobile phone. So I do appreciate it. And I expect my staff, I know Richard's staff, will stop people cycling on the footway. Some people are very careful, but it's still dangerous. Some cyclists ignore red lights over here, which in America they wouldn't do because they get arrested for jaywalking or something.
You referred to smart water?
Yes, smart water it's a DNA-based substance. And it's got a unique identity, so it can be painted onto articles. Some of the shops and some of the security places have got big systems, so if you smash a window, then the smart water will spray you and it puts a dye on you, but it can only be seen under a UV lamp. So if you go to a disco and you burgle somewhere, you will start to glow in the smart water. And we take a sample from it, and it's unique to an address or a premises or an item of property, and we can actually work out exactly where it's come from. So you can mark your property, you can put it safely on your property, and if someone steals that item of property, we put a UV lamp on it, take a sample of it, and we can reunite that property with the owner. We also use it to catch people, because they get covered in it. So it's a really good way.
If anyone wants it, we've got plenty packs. Contact me on the email or the telephone number, and we'll send it around to do.
2 gifts in one night. You're spoiled, so smart water, well worth doing. And mark the items which are really
And how long
important.
does it last?
As far as I'm aware,
Indefinitely.
indefinitely, yeah. Sir, as long as you don't hit me with your stick.
Yes, sir, I want to give you a stick. Commander, what do you reckon is the new policy of the Conservative? As to me, personally, the police don't need to be accountable to anyone, and the Borough Commander should be elected. What's your view on that?
I won't get too much into politics because we're in a position of purdah at the moment, and I shouldn't get involved in politics. I'm personally accountable to you. I'm actually accountable to the people of Brent for delivering performance. I appear before a group called the Community Safety Board who hold me to account. You know, I think I'm responsible to you. The Conservatives may change the way that police borough commanders are brought in. You know, the Mayor of London, I've lots of contact. You know, he rings me up from time to time if he wants to know something about local policing. But really, I'm left alone from politics to police your borough. And, you know, it's public funds. I need to make sure that I use that money appropriately.
Thank you.
And the police authority hold me to account as well, which are the body that hold the police to account. Eric's about to say we're going to be evicted. What about one last question?
Commander, question and a comment.
Yeah.
There's often activities around VIX with these different agencies stopping
Is
cars.
that picking people up, or is that?
No, with the border agencies.
Oh, right,
I
okay.
just want to know what are the outcomes usually. They are there every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And another question is regard to Mapesbury. If Sergeant Jackson could throw some light on the crime in Mapesbury. And a comment is that we've been working with the police for a long time.
Yeah.
With Judy, Resident Association, I think you're doing excellent work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, and you've made me very welcome when I've come to visit you. Wicks, I don't know specifically.
Tends to be more traffic-related matters. It's generally the traffic organise it, so they're mostly dealing with traffic things. So, you know, I don't think the figures would be something that you'd be particularly interested in, because it is just generally traffic matters.
In terms of Mapesbury, the one thing that was a challenge, certainly from kind of July, August, September and building up, and it was a problem across all the northwest of London, was burglaries. And, you know, we have now gone back to the levels that we used to see. We suddenly went up to kind of 10s, 12s and 13 offences across the whole borough there. Mapesbury was one of those that was very attractive. And we've done a lot of work to try and reduce that. We're now down to kind of 4s, 5s, and I think we had 3. Was it 3 today or 4 today? Which is where we should be in terms of burglaries. That's still 4 too many. But the good news around burglaries is that about a third of our burglaries, they can't get in because the crime prevention is getting better. So at least 1/3 of all my offences, they can't get into your property. Can be bad news because sometimes they go and try next door. But we have a lot of attempts where they can't get in, so please make your premises secure. Please be very aware of leaving windows open, particularly on the ground floor. And the one thing that I would ask you to do, have you got a vulnerable person that lives next door, upstairs, downstairs from you? Because we have a lot of elderly people particularly who open their door and allow people to come in. Just before Christmas we had I'm trying to think, I'll get her age right now, I think she was 80 years old, and someone had tricked their way into her home purporting to be a VAT inspector saying, we're going to give you some money back. Well, that would have rung an alarm bell with me, because when of the VAT, please not in the local press, when would they ever give you money back? But they came round, they said to her, oh, we've made a mistake actually, you owe us money. And she handed over some money to them, large amount of money. They came back again and took another sum of money off her. I'm talking about £11,000. And they were going back to do it a third time until we got involved. And we caught them, we arrested them. I can't say too much about names and everything because that's still going through. But she was tricked, and it happens all the time. You know, they say, "Oh, your bull's in the garden. Can we come and get our bull back?" Or someone says, "There's a burst pipe upstairs." Please try and encourage people who you know, it could be a family member, not to open doors and windows unless you know who they are. You can get security passwords with companies. You know, if the gas board are coming round, they'll give a password. And we try and remind people, go up to a first floor window and open the window up there and talk down to someone. You don't have to open the front door. So you can help us. Crime, Mapesbury is a pretty nice place to live, isn't it? I always thought so when I lived up Crickwood Lane. I'd love to have lived in Mapesbury. But burglary was the one challenge for us, and Rich and his team have done a lot of work, and thankfully things are moving back to where they should be. Is that my getting time?
I'm terribly sorry.
Eric, okay, I'll hand back to you.
I'm terribly sorry, I do apologise for it, but the library service has been on to me in the last few days, including today, emphasising or stressing, is the word.
I've never been evicted from a library, so that's
But first of all, I made a short announcement, something quite unrelated to your first two, before you began. And I pitched you straight to you without even introducing you, so my large apology, I can't introduce you now. I can only say thank you very much for a fascinating talk. I'm sure I speak for all of us in saying that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Honestly, so